I think that's a very important question, not only for conference professionals, but really anybody in an executive role in an organization. I thought the best way of answering is to at least begin with the perspective of how our own firm operates to provide venues so that executives can stay on top of the business plan and how it's changing over time. And basically, it's a series of communications that occur with different frequencies. So normally, the kickoff period to understand the business is what we call our State of the Business address. It's usually given in the first quarter. And in this address, our chairman, president, CEO speaks about how the business is doing, and then calls on various senior executives in the respective fields to give the take from each perspective. So what is the purpose of that meeting? And that is really, it's intended for almost all professionals in the organization, where there's a review of how the business fared in the prior year, and then what the goals and objectives are for the coming year. And this is something that, again, all the conference planners would be involved in, and it's probably the most important single meeting for them to attend to just understand what the firm is dealing with. Then, in addition to that, there's another set of meetings that are generally on a quarterly basis, and in fact, they're called quarterly business reviews. And so in this case, the meetings take place for each of the major business organizations that constitute what we call our enterprise. And in these quarterly meetings, again, what the heads of the group and their assistants are discussing is what were the plans for the organization at the beginning of the year, and then in light of what was taking place in the preceding quarter, how did we fare relative to those plans? And I think the major thing is to provide the people in the audience with an impression of what are some of the challenges that we're confronting that maybe we didn't anticipate. And so again, I think for conference planners, these sets of meetings are the best way for them to stay involved with each of the specific business units. And often in the way our organization works, when we're doing conferences, it's really the respective businesses that are responsible for setting up these conferences. And then finally, the way that the loop closes, normally at the fourth quarter of each year, then there'll be a group of people involved with each business unit as they're formulating their plans for the coming year. And typically in my own case, where I was representing the investment unit, I would typically kick off the meeting by saying, here's what's happening in the economy. And of course, in the insurance industry, most important development is what's happening to interest rates and to the spreads. That is the difference between what we invest in, what yields we're earning versus what we're paying out in the way of liabilities. And so this is the meeting, again, where we're trying to be now forward-looking as each of the business units are developing their own plans and the like. So you kind of go full cycle. So that's basically the pattern. Now, what I would say is in the case of conference planners, then you have, on a periodic basis, producer conferences that are held for each of the business units, and obviously these are off-sites at hospitality areas. And yet again, the executives from each business unit will be explaining to their key producers, here's the goals that we met, how well are we doing to achieving those goals, and then here's the goals that we're setting out going forward, and most importantly, what is it that we're expecting our producers to be generating. So, to me, the good conference planner should have eyes, ears on all of these meetings. And then, in the way of concluding, is there anything else that conference planners can do above and beyond? Well, number one, of course, you have the news media, you have television business programs and the like. And it may be a bit controversial here, but I would suggest don't waste a lot of time on understanding developments on a day-to-day basis. The reason is those come, those go. Those programs are really directed at investors who have a very short-term focus for what they're doing, as opposed to what we're talking about, where you're trying to gauge what's the right strategy for our business over the medium term. And from that perspective, then just lastly, in the area of news and magazines, I suggest that if you have time, a cursory reading of the Wall Street Journal. You don't have to read every article, but just catch the headlines to see if there are some important updates. And then my favorite, for those of you who want to know what's happening outside the United States, is The Economist magazine, produced out of London, comes out weekly, has very good articles that are crisp, to the point, and help you to stay current what's happening outside the United States. So those are my suggestions of how to stay on top of business strategy.